Welcome back to AFTV, everyone. We are here on Santa Monica Pier. We've flown into Los Angeles, having just been in New York City and Washington, D.C., watching Arsenal get that win against the MLS All-Stars. Unfortunately, they lost to Man United, but we feel we've learned a few things. I'm here with Curtis and Robbie to go through them. So, from the East Coast to the West, felt like a good time to do this. The first point, and there's 5 things we've learned. What's your first, Curtis?
Well, I'm still very uncertain about Kai Havertz.
Oh, also, what a shock.
Yeah, well, listen, man. I don't like to single out any player.
Yeah.
But he's the one player out of the 3 that, confused me when we bought him. Not because I think he's a bad player, but he hasn't played that well for a while consistently. And it's just like, where do we fit him into the team? Do we have to change the whole system to get him in the team? And I think he's got talent, but I'm just concerned because I felt like last season we had a very solid shape that nearly led us to the title. I think it felt like it was going to be Xhaka for Rice, and not a lot needs to change. With Havertz coming in, it just feels like it's throwing up a big issue of, spending 65 million, 200 grand a week. Arteta's going to have to justify why have he spent that much money, so he's going to try and get him in the team. So I need to see a lot more from him, I've got to be honest.
Yeah, and look, while I'm willing to be very patient on Havertz, I have to completely agree. I don't feel any more certain about his role in this team or his quality to sort of take us to the next level, but hopefully we learn more come Barcelona. Robbie, point number 2, what have you got?
First of all, it's a beautiful area. I mean, you've got the sea in the background, the beautiful white sand, I'm loving it here in Los Angeles. But, all right, let me go with a positive, right? My positive, second thing that, we've learned, I feel, we've all learned, is that this guy, Jurriën Timber, looks class. He's not played a full game yet, but we've seen bits of him and he's looked class. He's very quick. He's very skillful. He looks very comfortable on the ball. And you can see straight away that he's going to fit perfectly into what Mikel Arteta's trying to do. You said about the doubts with Havertz, right, which there are doubts at the moment, and hopefully he solves those in time. Yeah. But with Jurriën Timber, straight away you see a player that's going to fit in there. I would really like to see him play as a centre-back because he's so far played as a right-back, and he's inverted in and done all those sort of things. But we haven't seen him yet play as a centre-back. And remember, for Ajax, he played as a centre-back. Yeah. So I want to see what he's like in that job as well as what he's doing now. But certainly, I like what I've seen so far. And I think he's going to be a really, really top signing. Yeah,
I completely agree with that. Okay, let's move on to our third thing. What have you got for us, Curtis?
And first of all, it's great of Robbie to let us in his back garden.
I wish this was, man. Yeah. I could get used to this.
Yeah, you definitely could get used to this. Listen, we're talking about the striker situation. It may come across negative, but I think it's a positive to talk about. And I think, number 1, Gabriel Jesus, 11 goals last season. He was injured for 3 months, so I think the general hope is that if he can stay fit for the season, he can turn 11 into maybe 17, 18, 19, 20 goals. But I do think there are question marks about the whole striker situation at Arsenal. I think, we saw Eddie's performance the other day, and I don't want to isolate one game. I think, certainly for me, I've had doubts over Eddie for a while about whether he's Arsenal quality or not. Balogun, we saw today he trained away from the team. There's still talk of Inter Milan. Looks like he could be going. You know that you need squad depth to win a title. I think we have addressed that in other areas. It's just with that striker situation. Do we need another striker to go in there, a plan B to Gabriel Jesus? And I think it's something worth talking about.
I agree. And actually, I think, just to add to that, is that I think we're learning that there's not really room for both. Especially when you've got the likes of Trossard and Havertz that can play in that role as well. So I agree, the striking situation absolutely needs dealing with.
Are we, just on the striker, before we switch off of that, are we overdoing it on that? When you look at the fact that we did actually score a lot of goals last season, and we weren't dependent. Our style of play meant that we weren't dependent upon a striker. I get what you're saying. We all want to see that elite striker down the middle, but we're still scoring goals.
Yeah. I agree with you. Like, I think the way I describe it is, in an ideal world, unlimited budget, and you could, move the pieces of the squad however you want quite freely. Get a different profile who's an absolute bagsman and gets loads of goals. I just don't think that's anywhere near a priority. But I understand people who say so. What's the fourth point, Robbie?
Fourth point I'm going to talk about is our squad depth. You know what I mean? I think what we've seen on this tour is that Arsenal have got a bit of squad depth, and it's been really good to see. Just spoke about Jurriën Timber. You know, there's who plays? Is it Timber or Ben White?
Yeah.
Competition for places there. You know what I mean? Really, really good to see. You know, in the midfield, you know what I mean? You've got Partey or Jorginho, right? That's squad depth. You know what I mean? You've got Declan Rice in there. You've got, you know, obviously we're going to want Fabio Vieira to step up. You've also, though, got players like Emil Smith-Rowe, who came on against Man United, looked quite sharp. Remember, he's coming back from injury. Depth there again, you know what I mean? You just spoke about up front. All right, maybe none of them are the elite clinical strikers that we're looking for, but there's still squad depth there, you know what I mean? You've got Jesus, you've got Trossard. We don't know if Balogun's will stay, but either Balogun or Eddie will still stay there. So there's squad depth there. On the left-hand side, Trossard, Martinelli, you know what I mean? In defence, you know, you look on the left-hand side, Zinchenko, you've got Tierney, you've even got, you know, Tomiyasu, who can play there as well. So all of a sudden, I'm seeing more squad depth to the team, and I think that's going to be so important going into the new season because, you know, Champions League football changes a lot of things. You know what I mean? This morning before we left out, we were watching the highlights of last season. Yeah, where they were showing all the games, and they were, you know, showing our games against FC Zurich and that. Yeah. When you look at the team we played in that game, it was literally there was one game where he'd made 10 changes. Yeah. You can't do that in the Champions League. In the Champions League, you've literally got to go with your strongest team. Then you've got the weekend coming, you need your strongest team again. Yeah. So that's where you need squad depth. You need players that are at a similar level. You need players that are challenging each other for positions. You know, I note that Eddie Nketiah was saying earlier on today that, you know, I'm not here to just be a number 2. I want to be the main guy. You know what I mean? So squad depth, I'm beginning to see for Arsenal. It let us down last season towards the end of last year when Saliba went out. Yeah. Didn't have that squad depth. Hopefully now we're getting that, and that will be vital for us in the Champions League and vital for us if we are to mount a challenge to win this title.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. And actually my fifth and final point builds on that, which is that Arteta's treating this USA tour, in my opinion, quite differently to how he treated Baltimore and Orlando last year. We know we all came back from it sort of, you know, so in awe of the team and ready for the season because of the results, the beating Chelsea. When you look at that first game, that Baltimore stop before Orlando, he played Everton, basically played his first team with Jesus, Martinez, Saka leading the line, and we've got a real taste of how that front three would look. We've gone into these games with sort of different combinations, Eddie sometimes on the left, starting against Man United, and tweaking different things, Timber, Havertz, Rice, all starting in the game against Man United. And then when it came to making substitutions against United, if that were a game he was desperate to win, you're not taking Martinelli and Rice off first as your first, you know, substitutions in the game. So I think he's experimenting. And last year, as great as we were, and it worked for so much of the season, you can get predictable. You always got to switch up the dynamics. And by having a Timber come in, it's giving, you know, almost new life to Tierney, because suddenly Tierney's playing that left back role in the way that suits him a little bit more when Timber's in the team. So I think it's really interesting how Arteta is experimenting, playing around, and certain players, Balogun against Man United didn't come on. Rob Holding hasn't had a minute of football because I think he knows what he's going to get from Rob Holding, so he's trying to do different things. So I definitely think experimenting has been a big part of this tour. Whether, you know, that translates from the East Coast to the West, and we see that against Barcelona, I'm not sure. I'd like to see something that feels a bit more familiar, but let's see. I think that's all 5,
Yeah, all 5. I mean, you know, and let's hope that it all comes together so that we see a good start to the season. That's what it's all about.
Absolutely.
Pre-season is all about getting the team ready and then flying into that first game of the season. And hopefully that's what we see.
Absolutely. Definitely. Get in the comment section below, everyone. I want to know what you've learned from pre-season so far. Of course, we're here still another 3-4 days, and that Barcelona game at the SoFi Stadium is going to be a really, really good test. Also because it's potential Champions League opposition that we're also going to get a little bit of prep for as well. So let us know all your thoughts in that. Check out all the other content. Check out the vlogs. They're all a great laugh. Honestly, I really recommend it. Hit the like button and catch everything we're doing on this USA tour right here on AFTV.